History is a tapestry woven with shadows and whispers. What if the greatest stories remain untold, hidden in plain sight? Please like, share, and subscribe. This season, we expose the forgotten, dissect the myths, and confront the conspiracies that shaped our world. Prepare for Histories, Mysteries, and Conspiracies Season 3. The Greatest Deception. The worship of false gods is always an outgrowth of spiritual deception. Max Anders, From Not an Ending to a New Beginning. Do you feel like something is off? Do you think something is not right about the world we are living in? We're told this feeling is paranoia, that it's anxiety, that it's just the times we live in. But what if it's not paranoia at all? And maybe it is, or maybe there is something that is not right about this place we live. We have religious institutions which preach ideals but often practices something quite different. We have educational institutions which teach lies in the form of truths. We have governments which claim to be for justice but all too often are inhumane. In a world full of lies, the truth becomes crazy. What if this didn't start with governments or churches, but with the very idea of authority itself? The devil is in the details. They say, the greatest trick the devil ever performed is tricking you into believing the devil doesn't exist. But what if the greatest trick was really making you believe that the devil was really God? What if the God that you worship was actually a lesser being, who through ignorance and arrogance believed that he was God? This is what the Gnostics believed. Satan means adversary, since the demiurge is the adversary who is opposing the true God. Functionally, we might say that the role attributed to Satan mirrors the role of the demiurge, an adversarial authority, opposing the true God while ruling the lower world. The greatest deception may not be darkness. It might just be artificial light. Or maybe the greatest deception may not be that evil exists, but that we were taught to worship authority instead of truth. How the Abrahamic faiths see the devil. While Christianity and Islam share a similar view of a fallen tempter with limited authority, Judaism generally does not view Satan as a powerful rival entity holding dominion. Here is a breakdown of the views across the three main Abrahamic traditions. Christians. Many Christians hold that the devil, Satan, has a temporary, permitted, and limited influence over the world, often referred to as being the God of this world or ruler of this world, 2 Cor 4:4, John 12:31. This dominion is generally interpreted as control over a worldly sinful system, its values, power structures, and temptations, rather than ownership of the physical planet. The devil does not have independent ultimate power. He is a created, subservient entity whose actions are permitted by God for temporary, wise purposes. Christians believe Christ has already broken the devil's power, which will be completely destroyed at the end of time. Muslims. In Islam, Iblis, Satan, is considered a jinn who refused to bow to Adam and was expelled from heaven. Iblis is a tempter and deceiver who seeks to lead humans astray, but he does not rule the earth. His ability to influence is entirely dependent on God's permission. Islamic theology emphasizes that humans are responsible for their own actions, and Iblis only whispers he cannot force or control. People of the Jewish faith. Judaism does not believe in a powerful, independent entity that is the devil or a prince of darkness acting in opposition to God. In Hebrew scripture, Satan is a title meaning adversary or accuser, as in the book of Job, serving as a heavenly agent authorized by God to test humans or act as a prosecutor. In much of Jewish theology, Satan is a metaphor for the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, within each person, not an external force ruling the world. All three traditions agree that God is ultimately sovereign and that the devil has no power independent of God's allowance. The Gnostics. In contrast, Gnostics generally do not have a devil in the traditional Christian sense of an adversary to God. Instead, they believe in a lesser, often ignorant or malevolent creator deity known as the demiurge, who imprisons souls in the material world. The true evil in Gnosticism is ignorance of one's divine nature, not a supernatural tempter. The primary antagonist is the demiurge, often equated with the Old Testament creator God, who wrongly believes himself to be the supreme being. He is not Satan, but a flawed creator. The demiurge is assisted by archons, demonic-like rulers who maintain the material prison and prevent souls from returning to the true, hidden God. While some Gnostic interpretations might view Satan as a shadow of the demiurge, he is not a central figure. Some Gnostic perspectives even reframe the serpent in Eden as a positive figure bringing knowledge to liberate humanity. The ultimate obstacle is agnosia, not a personified devil. Gnosticism replaces the traditional devil with a cosmic structure of a false creator and his servants who keep humanity ignorant of their true divine origin. The fall of man and the rise of the devil. Adam was the chosen one nominated by God himself. He was given full dominion of the earth and the beings within it. And God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth." The fall of man, which is rooted in Genesis 1:3, describes humanity's transition from innocent obedience to guilty disobedience, introducing sin, suffering, and death into the world. Tempted by the serpent, Adam and Eve's rebellion resulted in their expulsion from Eden, causing a separation from God. Adam and Eve disobeyed God by eating the forbidden fruit from the tree of knowledge. The devil, in the form of a snake, tempted Eve by questioning God's command and promising they would become like God. This act, known as the fall, introduced original sin, leading to shame, brokenness, physical death, and expulsion from the Garden of Eden. God cursed the serpent and made crawl upon his belly. God also instituted pain in childbearing and labor, and promised that the woman's offspring would crush the serpent's head. Not fully explained in this verse, but it is most commonly believed that because of the fall of man, man lost his dominion over the earth. But was someone else giving dominion over the earth? Doesn't someone or something need to be the authority over earth, especially with a separation with God? Interestingly, in the devil or Satan moves freely. When asked by the God where he has been, Satan replies, "From going to and fro in the earth, and from walking up and down in it." Traditional theology explains this symbolically, but symbolism does not negate authority. We find out later in the New Testament that Satan is the authority of this world. Now is the judgment of this world. Now will the ruler of this world be cast out. John 12:31. The prince of this world now stands condemned. John 16:11. Most Christians break down into two groups: those who believe that Satan has a temporary authority over earth, but God is the supreme ruler, or some believe that it refers to the fallen state of the world. The mark of Cain. The mark of Cain, originating in Genesis 4:15, is a divine sign set upon Cain, to protect him from vengeance after murdering his brother Abel. Across Abrahamic traditions, it is interpreted as both a curse of shame and a gesture of divine mercy. Theories range from physical marks, leprosy, a horn, a branded letter, to spiritual signs, an aura of dread. Christians historically understood the mark as a sign preventing others from killing him. It is often interpreted as a visible badge of his shame and separation from God. In the Gnostic belief, some of them see Cain as a mark represents divine protection from the demiurge's followers, Abel's line, and symbolizes the elite status of those with spiritual lineage rather than a punishment for sin. However, Cain and Cain's lineage is personification of the material world. So what if the demiurge gave Cain a badge of authority? If authority in this world protects the murderer rather than the righteous, then perhaps the mark was not mercy, but jurisdiction. Authority versus truth. Truth persuades. Authority compels. Truth does not require enforcement. Authority does. The moment something must be enforced, it is no longer relying on truth. It is relying on power. When a god demands obedience without understanding, it mirrors earthly rulers, not divine truth. Every system we live under, church, state, education, is built on the same structure: obedience first, understanding later, if ever. And this is where Gnosticism becomes dangerous, not because it is wrong, but because it asks the wrong questions too honestly. The Gnostic challenge to authority. Gnosticism poses a direct threat to traditional authority by claiming that salvation comes through hidden knowledge, gnosis, rather than public doctrine, apostolic succession, or institutional power. Not through permission, not through hierarchy, but through internal awakening. The demiurge does not rule by truth. He rules by structure. He does not persuade, he compels. And his servants, the archons, do not convince, they regulate. They enforce order. They maintain systems. They keep souls focused on the material world. In Gnostic thought, the world itself is a prison, not created by the true hidden God, but by a lesser, ignorant ruler who mistakes authority for divinity. Scripture as a battleground. Gnostics did not reject Scripture. They reinterpreted it. They read the Gospel of John and saw truth, not as obedience, but as escape. Not resurrection of the body, but liberation from the body. This stands in direct opposition to Orthodox Christianity, which emphasizes public Scripture, apostolic authority, and the physical incarnation and resurrection of Christ. One offers structure and continuity. The other offers knowledge and escape. But here's where it gets uncomfortable. The Bible's warning about knowledge, because Scripture itself seems to warn us against knowledge. O Timothy, keep that which is committed to thy trust, avoiding profane and vain babblings and oppositions of science falsely so-called knowledge. 1 Timothy 6:20. And again, beware lest any man spoil you through philosophy and vain deceit, after the tradition of men, after the rudiments of the world, and not after Christ. Colossians 2:8. So what are we being told? Is knowledge the danger, or is the wrong kind of knowledge the danger? Is the warning against awakening, or against awakening outside of control? The uncomfortable possibility. Maybe Gnosticism isn't the answer, but maybe it exposes the problem. What if Jesus was not rejecting knowledge, but embodying it? Not secret knowledge hoarded by elites, but living truth that could not be regulated. Because if salvation comes from authority, it must be mediated. But if salvation comes from truth, it must be discovered. And discovery cannot be controlled. Judgment. One must ask the question, how does a God have three major religions believing different views? Even though all three religions believe that the God is the creator of the world, they all have opposing views on Satan or the adversary. You would assume that if the Bible was truly written by God or even divinely inspired, that believers of the Bible would all hold similar beliefs. So the question remains, who is the God we worship? Which brings us back to, ye are of your father the devil, and the lusts of your father ye will do. He was a murderer from the beginning, and abode not in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaketh a lie, he speaketh of his own, for he is a liar and the father of it. John 8:44. Have we been tricked into believing that the devil is our God? Or was the earth given over to Cain and his lineage and the rest of us are subordinate to them? The system. Yet these questions persist in a world where churches preach mercy while wielding control, governments promise freedom while enforcing conforming. And system is built designed to keep you poor and in a state of oppression, religious, political, economic, disguise themselves as necessary order. If the greatest deception is not the absence of evil, but the worship of a flawed authority that keeps us ignorant of our divine spark, then perhaps the real fall wasn't in Eden, but in forgetting who we truly are. What if the serpent wasn't the villain but the first whisper of awakening? What if true liberation begins not with submission to any throne, celestial or earthly, but with the quiet refusal to accept artificial light as truth? In the end, the choice remains yours. Cling to the familiar illusions of power and certainty, or risk awakening to a truth that cannot be controlled. If this pattern is real, then it wouldn't stop in Scripture. It would reproduce itself in every system built on authority. The real battle. For our wrestling is not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world. Not kings, not governments, not institutions, but systems of authority that rule through fear, obedience, and ignorance. If truth persuades and authority compels, then the greatest deception may not be false gods, but mistaking authority for truth. Baraba. Select an option for more.